And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the VlogCast. VlogCast that comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. The VlogCast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect, when some people on Facebook that I knew finally just said, we can post whatever we want because we're doing it our way, and just because we're wrong and we're enjoying it doesn't mean that we have to stop because we're wrong. Stop being right about logic and stuff. Part of the vlogcast is also to answer some of the questions of, is the journey actually more impressive than the destination? I'm your host. I am known as Shujin Tribble all over the place. You can find me online anywhere under that name. I was born into a Roman Catholic family in Brooklyn, New York, raised on Long Island. I currently reside outside of Buffalo, New York, and identify as an unabashed atheist. Joining us on tonight's show is Joseph.
How you doing, folks? Name's Joe. Born to, again, Roman Catholics. Myself in the Windy City instead of the city that never sleeps. The city's so nice they burned it twice. Spent 8 years in the military, and now I am living in Pittsburgh as a graphic designer, illustrator, gun-owning crazy nut job, and an atheist. Everything.
Also, Unrenowned Tech.
Hi, folks. Troll here. Currently residing in Southern Maryland, having a good time with it. I found me a Dungeons and Dragons group. Yay!
Good job.
Yeah, got my nerd on. I'm an atheist. I've slowly been turning into an anti-theist just by watching politics. So, any atheists out there that don't want to become anti-theists, stop watching the politics on TV.
That's a good way of looking at it. And also joining us for the second week now, please everyone, welcome Ashley.
Yay!
Welcome, Ashley.
Hey, well, I live about 2 hours outside of Oklahoma City in a little town. Was raised Methodist. Didn't really go to church much, but now I'm an atheist, and I'm happy to be here.
We are very proud for you to be here. I know I may come across sounding kind of somewhat insincere to some people by saying that, but we had a good long talk after the show last week, about an hour and a half extra, and I'm pretty sure you feel that I really do mean it.
Yes, absolutely.
Very cool.
And now I have to do what I've been waiting for.
Oh, good Lord, now what?
Shoot me later. Oh, Oklahoma, where the wind goes sweeping through the plains.
Really? Folks, please tune in next week when we will have yet another seat available and open for you to go ahead and join us. But we'll talk about firing Joe.
No, I'm not leaving the show.
No, you're not.
Wait, fire?
Before we get
Somebody say fire?
Before we get started with everything,
It's fire, it's cool.
we'll go ahead and Unrenowned Tech is deeming it Tribble's Troubles. I'm gonna basically just continue calling it the 5-minute freestyle, with apologies to Heath and Wright. Let's get us going. Part of the reason for starting tonight's show and for tonight's theme, believe it or not, did not have anything to do with Cash's show of Atheists on Air, who we credit with a lot. And, of course, we still have an open spot for you whenever you'd like to, Cash. So long as you stop the 4-hour goddamn shows. We kind of run a really loose ship, as opposed to other groups like the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe or the Scathing Atheist or a lot of these other groups where they plan well in advance what it is they're going to be doing. I unfortunately don't have that time available to me or the mental power available to me most of the time because I'm busy doing my thing. You know, being a single dad is not an easy thing at all. And
Testify.
And doing stuff, working, trying to make sure that things work, it's not easy. and it isn't for anybody. But what caught me was something that came through on my newsfeed on my little tricorder device over here that we ostensibly call a phone. My little mini computer brought me news headlines from the BBC. And there was one that came through my newsfeed where I actually said, wow. And I was actually in tears just from looking at the headline. The headline this time was about the Nobels. The Nobel Prizes normally do not get a lot of attention, except, of course, on the rare occasion where something comes through that happens to touch people's lives. Now, I've seen the stuff in science come through from the Nobels, and there have been some amazing things. But this was one of those times where the Peace Prize was announced, and I was both incredibly proud and sorry all at the same time. The fact that the Nobels can be shared is kind of weird to me, but okay, I can live with that. But the Nobel Prize in Peace for this year went to someone who deserved it. Who deserved it last year, as far as I was concerned. Who literally paid for it in blood without even asking. Now, there are times when people will say that some people search out greatness and others have greatness thrust upon them. Malala Yousafzai had a gun thrust to her, quite literally. And into her face a bullet rang through. Her crime in Pakistan was going to school. At 14 or 15 years old, and I've forgotten which, she was shot in the face on the bus taking her to school because she wanted to learn. And she got worldwide attention. She got the care that she needed. She got the attention of even the moron Islamic radicals who said, dude, shooting a little girl, that's really not cool. And when they tell you you made a mistake, that's pretty nasty. At 16 years old, she was addressing the United Nations to talk about how things can be improved. When I was 16 years old, I dressed up for my birthday. Girls get a sweet 16. Boys don't get nothing. So I decided I was going to dress up for the occasion. Why you dressed up? It's my birthday. I'm 16. Okay. She addressed the United Nations. The collection of the great leaders of the planet. And now, she's finally recognized for who she is and what she richly deserves. An ambassador to the world as someone who came through some of the worst that could ever befall someone. She's lucky. She's lucky beyond measure. But she is doing exactly what anyone in her position who's a humanist should do. Someone who cares about their fellow man, the species, civilization. She decided to speak up and say, we can make a difference. All of us. Congratulations. And many, many good years ahead to you, hon. So tonight, we're going to be talking about what made me cry. And we're going to find out what it is that makes us tick. This is episode number 37. I'm labeling it In a Mason Jar on a Shelf. Basically because as I was writing this up, I was thinking about one of the old, well, I call it old now, from the 90s, the Zorro movies with Antonio Banderas. And I've completely butchered his name, and I, personally, really, right now, I don't care, because it's kind of late already.
Banderas.
Antonio Banderas. Thank you. Because the first movie, he ended up learning from the guy who was Zorro how to be Zorro, because the son of a bitch had his brother's head in a jar, and it was a trophy. And that's kind of what got me going on this. So let's start off here with Malala. Actually, I'm going to start off with you, because you've been talking about last week how you had listened to a lot of the episodes of The Thinking Atheist, and I was lucky enough to talk with Seth on at two occasions so far, and one or two, anyway, and we discussed Malala at one point or other. I'm assuming that you've heard about her. You heard part of the story. I don't know if you had heard how he spoke about her, or what your thoughts are at this point specifically.
Yeah, I know her story, but I've never heard what Seth has said.
That's fair enough. In that case, knowing her story and finding out that now she's finally won the Nobel for prize for peace, your feelings on it all. I mean, how does it make you feel?
Being that young and accomplishing or being a part of something so great. Wow, I don't know. I couldn't do that. I don't know if I could.
Into the truth.
Excuse me?
No, I was saying ain't it the truth? I mean,
Yes.
it's an incredible accomplishment for someone so young to start off with.
Just fighting to go to school. I never had to do that. I tried my best not to go to school, and she walks and gets shot and is wow. Just two different worlds.
True enough. Tech, I'm going to pick you at this point, because I know that what I'm going to end up asking Joe is going to take us a little bit longer too. How about for you? Had you heard about it when it broke, and knowing now, what do you got to say about her? I assume
honestly, with all the attention that she received, if she hadn't done something with it, something positive in any way, shape, or form, I would have been highly disappointed as a human being. The potential is still beyond what she's already done. She's, thanks to bigots and sexists, misogynists, if you will, she's been given a very long road to travel. But that bullet to the face carried her a good portion down it. It propelled her down it. Whether she wanted to do it or not, kicking and screaming, she's down that road. And she has the choice of whether she can fade into the limelight or keep the momentum going. And she's chosen to keep the momentum going. That's exactly like you said, a humanist, somebody who's looking out for their fellow man, woman, however you want to term it, mankind as a whole, is definitely a noble endeavor. And I congratulate her for it. Whether she earned the Nobel or not, she's going to keep going from what she's been doing. And from an atheist point of view and an anti-theist point of view, I congratulate her once again. Even though that she is religious, the general consensus is that she is fighting for women's education. True education is harmful to religious indoctrination. The best way to see the downfall of any religious indoctrination, the mindset of the Stockholm Syndrome, is education. So therefore, by her perpetuating education in any country, to any group of people. She is helping to free people's minds, allow them to become true humanists, towards their family and their friends and their neighbors and the people that they don't know halfway across the world. So it goes beyond the little bit that she's trying to do, whether she realizes it or not. She's making very big waves and very good waves. And I hope she continues for as long as she can carry that kind of a torch.
Absolutely.
I hope it doesn't. I hope she doesn't carry it to the point of where she starts to become. You know how it is. I don't know about you, but believe it or not, I actually have gone to the gym before. And when you get your first burn in your muscles, it's kind of a fatiguing but good feeling. And then you exercise through it and you keep on going and you get your second wind and you're all powered up. But there's a point where you get a second or third burn into your muscles and now you're causing damage. And I hope that she's able to reach that point where she realizes, okay, I've done everything that I could. Anything that I'm doing beyond this is actually now causing harm or damage, or it's hurting her own. Like politicians, they wear out quickly in the political limelight. It puts undue stresses on their bodies. I hope she remembers to take time to take care of herself, to rest when she needs it, to not push herself to the point that she collapses.
Yeah,
Okay?
let's very much hope that.
Because if you pass out, what's the message?
True enough.
I worked myself to exhaustion. But you didn't get to carry the message past the exhaustion because you passed out. Make sure you get the message across that it's great to work for a cause. It's great to work as hard as you possibly can, but to remember to take care of yourself too.
Yep. Now, Joe, you've got a different perspective, very, very, very different from the rest of us, unique in a way. You've spent some time out in what I have typically referred to as the Dust Bowl. I've joked about that to a certain degree. You've seen some of what it's like out there. Now, like I said, knowing that she's got the prize at this point for peace of all things at such a young age. I mean, I know I kind of mentioned about it on the show that we did last night, so it's not a surprise for you now. But having heard about it and all, how about for you? How are you feeling about her?
Observed. It's a hard thing for me to think about because, her same situation. I had seen similar and often far more, what's the word I'm looking for? Unfavorable outcomes. Um, it's not necessarily something that's easy for me to think about, so I try not to.
Okay, before you go any much further, then if this is not something that you, that, okay,
I'm a big boy.
that's neither here nor there. What I want you to do
Put your
though is
pants
to,
back on.
better than that, put the either take the microphone gain and pump it up, or eat that microphone at this point.
It is well deserved. I apologize. I got a little low tone there. Sorry. Um, but yeah, it is very well deserved. I'm really glad that she is getting the recognition for it. Will you stop playing with your pussy? And hey, it's not cursing if you're talking about.
Her name is Bunny.
You know
She
what?
is Destroyer of Worlds.
But yeah, congratulations. Really. There's the individual whom she is sharing the Peace Prize with. I sadly do not know his achievement, what he did, but congratulations to him as well. But for Malala, my my major concern is whether or not she ends up becoming a target again. And while I know that is very unlikely because with the light on her, you know, pretty much easier to see if there's an attack coming. But you can't put it past them. So
It's true. That is all too true.
good luck. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. And keep an eye out because, unfortunately, as much as we hate to admit it, this kind of fight is not over yet.
No, not by a long shot, unfortunately. So, now that we've got that out of the way, I want to remind everybody, we do actually have, I think this is possibly the greatest number of people we've had watching at one time. I currently show... we're actually up to 4 watchers currently, according to this. So that's yay, new high score. That's good.
Wait a minute. It says 4, and there's 4 people in here. Are you sure it's not counting just us?
I'm pretty sure because it's never gotten very high while we were on. So that's good.
I know one of them that's watching.
So if you are watching and paying attention, of course, over on the Google Hangout page, first off, of course, thank you very kindly. We do have the question and answer system up and running, so if you'd like to pose any questions to us or make any kind of comments, please, by all means, feel free. Additionally,
I was
if
going
you
to say this is officially a cat video.
No. Additionally, if you would like to send a voicemail message, you can do so by using the phone number that we've got over here, which is 859-HCTV-554. The number again is 859-4288-554. There's a whole reason behind most of the numbers, believe it or not, but we'll talk about that another time. I don't know how to get people on voice on here as yet, but we're going to keep investigating that as soon as I can figure out if Google Hangouts actually did incorporate the voice so we can run you in here as well. So we'll see about that a little bit later. So now the big question of that I kind of linked in for the description, the interview that... Oh, geez, what was the name of that? The interview that... Where was it? Yes, that Oprah had with Diane Nyad, where Oprah had gone ahead and said, well, you've got all this joy and enjoyment and awe of the universe and everything around you, and I don't call you an atheist.
Oh, God, that episode.
That was absolutely a horrific, absolutely horrific moment, because it was completely demeaning of what somebody says about for themselves. And I don't know, at this point I'm not necessarily going to be going through a line and such. So if anybody's got something that they want to chime in on this one as far as to how they felt about it, what thoughts they've got on it, hey, just jump right in. Ashley, don't feel at all bad about hanging back or jumping in. I mean, that's part of the reason for being able to give you your voice, hon. So I assume that we've all seen this particular, or part of this anyway.
And while I have no animosity toward her, I gotta say, Oprah, time's not being good to you. I mean, wow. I haven't seen her in a while. Okay. As could probably be said by practically any American within 10 years of my own age group, my mother was a bit of a, shall we say, I wouldn't say cultist, would I?
I don't know. Would you?
Maybe, I don't know. But definitely a follower of Her Majesty Queen O.
Wait. There's 2 kinds of O. There's O for Oprah, and then there's... Okay, we're talking about Oprah.
Yeah. But yes, while since I seen her, and I don't mean any offense by it. It's just you look tired, hon. And no offense, but maybe it's time to give up the TV gig.
Dude, she's making millions upon millions upon millions. She's not going to give up until the day she dies. Like Joan Rivers, except Joan Rivers was reputable. Excuse me.
What? I'm
Is
waiting.
that too soon?
It's okay.
I will say that while I know she meant well, at least I hope she meant well. It's hard to tell whether she just meant well or whether she meant to kind of paint somebody in her own light.
Yeah, you know what?
It rubbed me a little the wrong way. Let me put it that way. And again, I'm hesitant to get up in arms about it because, on one hand, maybe she just meant well. On the other, maybe not.
Now that's interesting because that brings up an interesting point about that. If the consideration is that maybe it was just Oprah's way of identifying properly for herself, which would be a really piss poor way of describing it. That's, you got a point. Maybe it wasn't. With everything that she's done in the past, I don't believe that her saying, "Well, I don't consider you an atheist," I don't think it was meant maliciously.
Yeah.
I think it was meant with just a complete misunderstanding of the term and the experience to go by.
Yeah, it's just what I could take from it is that she was speaking of her own perception. She was speaking of her own opinion, and everybody's entitled to that. She did not say, "Well, then you are not an atheist." She said, "Well, then I don't think of you as an atheist."
I don't consider you exactly. Good point.
And that's an opinion, and we're entitled to it. That's the beauty of modern media and modern interconnectivity, is that we can share these opinions in a forum that doesn't necessarily mean that one of us has to be put at the end of a gun.
Gee, isn't that nice for a change?
My only problem with it was Oprah has power behind her show, and she's fully aware of it. She really is. To say that she's not would be a gross... what's the word I'm looking for? A gross underestimation of her intelligence. Oprah knows exactly what she does when she gets on that stage in front of that camera. And she knows exactly how much influence she has in the world. She swings that power with authority.
Okay, you're starting
sure.
to make her sound like Darth Vader.
Well,
you know what? Actually, I have a lot more respect for Darth Vader.
Go ahead and dub over her intro music when she first walks out on the stage. Dun, 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 dun.
That'd be very easy because I have that as an alternative ringtone. Anyway, Megas XLR is my ringtone right now. So, anyway, the point is when she started making statements to the effect of how she considered, oh, you have awe, then you're not an atheist. It's like, well, no. Oprah, you're changing things to make your agenda, okay? And just a word to anybody out there that ever intends on going on Oprah's show, just remember, if she asks you a question and you don't give her the answer she wants, she's going to find a way to twist it to make it the answer that she demands. And that's exactly what she did to this woman. This lady she didn't believe in God. That makes her an atheist. She doesn't believe in any gods. That makes her basically a true atheist. But she has the wonder about the universe around her and how things work. That's a scientist. Okay, scientist wonders about everything. They ask questions about everything. And you know what? children are wonderful scientists because they wonder about the world around them too. Okay. Awe. Awe means just wow. That's amazing. That's mind-boggling. It might even be incomprehensible at some point. But the point is, just because you have awe doesn't mean that you believe in a deity. Okay? That goes back to the episodes of, well, let's define the word atheist, define the word believe, define the word knowledge and evidence, and define the different types of evidence. And you remember that, Susan? Because nobody was there except for you and me.
Well, and that is something that does come up from time to time, and
Right.
we will keep hitting those every once in a while. We may end up overlapping stuff that we've talked about, but making sure that we've got items clearly defined is incredibly important, to put it mildly.
And see, atheist is not one of those words that has a fluctuating meaning. Okay, there are words that are very wishy-washy in their definitions. They have multiple meanings. They can be, depending on how they're used, the fluctuation in your voice, all that stuff takes into consideration. But when somebody says they're an atheist, that means they have zero belief in any god, period. End of conversation. And Oprah was looking for a way to counter that statement and say, hey, look, people, see, she says she's an atheist, but she's really not. So she was trying to get out the message out there that, you atheists aren't really atheists. That's what it ultimately came down to, whether she made that statement bluntly or indirectly.
Yeah.
So, I have a lot more respect for Darth Vader. Because if you went up to Darth Vader and said, listen, I'm a rebel, he's like, okay. You're either, and he'd either lock you up or kill you. But he'd take you at your word for that, you're a rebel.
Probably just kill you. Yeah, Joe?
May I tackle this one?
Surely.
Hi, Steve, and welcome to the show. The topic for tonight is what makes us tick.
Emotionally.
Yes.
Do we have a heart?
In general, a lot of people like to think of atheists as unfeeling, uncaring, unmoved individuals. So,
Heartless satanic
is it
bastards.
true?
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to. Let me kind of. Oh God, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because it'll kind of put the exclamation point on it. Ashley is our newest member, and this is the second time that she's on with us in particular. And, well, perfect example. What are you feeling now? Now that you're actually with us and you've gotten your feet wet last week, you've got an opportunity to actually be here. How you doing?
Excited. Anxious that it's live and there's other people. But
Yeah, at least 3.
it's more than one. So that's usually why I'm more of a one-on-one kind of person. So it's a big deal.
Just pretend
But
we're
anyway.
all naked.
No.
So that makes me just want to close my eyes and just wait till it's over.
It would do the same for me, trust me.
But really, really excited. It's like just kind of waiting all week to talk to other people that feel the same way that I do.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes that's all that matters. Sometimes it's just a matter of knowing you're going to be able to be around with people, and you get excited. You get enthused. You want to be able to do good things. You want to be able to make it to the end of the week, so you drive a little bit carefully. You look out for falling rocks from the sky. You don't want to have that giant blue icicle falling off of planes and impaling you through the neck and
Just
stuff like that.
bring your towel.
That's pretty much, yeah, that's exactly what it comes to. God, really? You gonna make those references? Sure. Why not?
I am.
Well,
And remember to always avoid the Amish Wolverine.
wow, talk about shoehorning, man. That wasn't even nice. Okay, now see, here you go. So here's one of those feelings that I'm not sure if it falls under the good feeling or the bad feeling camp. Derision. I don't know of any other word to use for people like Ken Ham, who, by the way, I don't know if you
Plenty of
guys...
words. I have a whole vocabulary of words that could aptly describe Ken Ham.
Yes, but remember, we try to keep it at a PG-13 up
And
to
at a
the
PG-13 level, they're just maybe 9th grade words instead of 3rd grade words.
Joe?
Well, while we're on the topic, and let's try to, I think that would probably be the one that people most associate with those of our type. That
How do you mean?
Well, that in general, a lot of folks, obviously those who are the hardliners for religious fundamentalism, generally look at us as if we are doing nothing but mocking everything that they stand for and everything in the world, that's all we do. Actually, you know what, here, because I have the strange sensation that folks might not necessarily be familiar with our vocabulary. Okay,
I think they know what you mean by mocking.
but derision, correct?
Derision.
Okay. Derision, noun, contemptuous ridicule or mockery.
Yeah, that sounds about right in this particular case, and I'll explain why I was using that word in a couple moments, but going on.
No, I said my piece.
No, okay, that's fine. Excuse me.
You know me, I keep this simple.
It works out good that way.
I'm going to take this time real quick to point out to our viewers that just because we use advanced words does not mean that we think you're idiots in any way, shape, or form. Some of us actually have a dictionary right next to our computer just in case one of our fellows here use something that even we don't know.
Yeah, because it's not that we want to make anybody feel small-minded. It's just that there are times where we use words that are not commonly brought into your everyday conversation.
Not always, yes. As a matter of fact, Ashley, if you go back through our previous shows when we had Cash on, during the introductions and all, he was going ahead and saying how he's got this big book of words, and it's the writer's dictionary thesaurus thing. I forget exactly what it was, and he's just like, yeah, my opening pieces sound really good, and he's flipping through it. Yeah, because I can use this big book of words to try and find new stuff, until some mother humper decides to invite me on live where I can't go and refer to my big old damn book of stuff, and it's like, son of a bitch. You will probably have a good time looking at that one. The first 10 minutes of that is just beautiful. So you can check back on that later. You can talk anytime you feel like it. Your mic is live. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm a real quiet person. I like to listen.
That's all right. We will fix that. Don't worry.
There's nothing wrong with that. I wish more people would do that.
There is that. Now, the reason why I'm specifically using the word derision is because it does have a very negative connotation. And usually it's how people would view what atheists and skeptics would typically be doing, which is the whole made-up war on Christmas and picking on people because they have religious leanings and beliefs and whatever. When really we don't, generally speaking, pick on people just because of that. Now, I'm not going to say that all atheists or all skeptics are the same. Far from it. I'm not going to fall into the whole no true Scotsman thing, because no. There are all kinds of different people. And that's the thing. with atheists and skeptics, non-believers and anti-theists, and whatever terms you want to use, they are as varied in their way of doing things as there are as many denominations of Christianity, of which there's a lot. Okay, leave it at that. So some people are more hardline than others. Perfect example of that would be on YouTube, The Amazing Atheist. TJ is, well, there's no other way of using it, so I'll go ahead and I'll blow our PG-13 rating right now. He's an asshole. Most of the time, that's exactly how he comes across. He is an asshole, and he plays it up properly for exactly that reason. Now, it may be a matter that that's how he actually is, but be that as it may, that's how he is. Are we all intentionally confrontational? No. Some of us, like Ashley, as a perfect example, some of us are happier just hanging back and just listening and waiting to see and deciding and acting on what it is that you learn from just watching and listening. I mean, I assume that pretty well sums it up for you.
Yeah, I like to fill people out and where I can go, and then you
And then
know
gauge it from there.
yeah.
Yeah, which is very, oh God, who the hell was it? It was Yogi Berra, who supposedly had said, you can learn a lot just by listening. It may have been him, I don't remember. Joe?
Well, um, in no way do I ever want to make the suggestion that all confrontation is good. We most certainly know that there is many, many, many bad ways of confrontation and dealing with confrontation. However, there is something to be said for confrontation because confrontation can be used as a constructive device for growing. Some of us, in fact, grow and learn much better through confrontation. So while we could technically call this individual an asshole, sometimes he's the asshole we need.
If not necessarily the asshole we deserve.
Yes.
Had a feeling it would work. So a couple of questions are coming through, and of course, folks, thank you very much for that. Please, by all means, feel free to take advantage of, abuse the hell out of the question and answer system. You can go ahead and just send us messages all you want. If you want to send me a message on Twitter, please, by all means, at Shujin Tribble, all one word, and see what kind of questions we've got. Andrew, and we have a thing about not using last names, so whatever your first name is. Andrew has put a couple of them over here. You will eat a walnut, and also asking, he will eat a walnut. Actually, I've eaten walnuts. I will eat walnuts in the future. I don't have a walnut allergy, and walnuts are actually not nuts. But neither here nor there. Anybody else like walnuts?
I don't mind them at all. However, sadly, I do not have walnuts. I do have peanuts.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Tech?
I like my nuts crushed.
We'll keep that. Ashley, do you want to finally tell him to just shut the hell up and stop being like that?
Come on, that's from Airplane. How would you like your nuts crushed? How would you like it blown off?
I like pistachios.
There you go.
And
Ladies got good taste. Look at that.
Pistachios are like exercise food because you actually have to work before you can eat them.
It's true.
As long as you get them with the shell still on.
Pistachios are also one of the few food items that can be that has to be labeled as a explosive hazard material.
Please explain.
Please.
Actually, I believe I brought this one up to you before, Sean. But let me exactly find the reasoning because obviously I don't remember all of it.
See, folks, this is what happens on a live show. You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes you need to do filler material. This would be one of those times.
Pistachio nuts are highly flammable.
Yep.
And like any other produce, they give off gas once they are harvested. They start to decompose. Now, slowly, obviously, but they're still giving off gas. And when there is a sufficient mixture of that output in the oxygen of the area which they are contained, it can be a very volatile mixture. And then there are, in fact, records of shipping containers of pistachios in transit exploding.
I just like that they're salty.
Oh my.
That's fine. That's perfectly fine. I'm sorry. I'm completely.
Oh my!
Which brings up the question: would you eat them on a train? Would you eat them on a plane? Would you eat them on a boat? Would you eat them with a goat?
I do like green eggs and ham.
See,
Of course,
and me,
Miss
I
Piggy
was,
and Kermit have been looking for their children ever since.
and me myself, I'm actually thinking this would be a highly ineffective IED, but I didn't really want to make that joke
Well,
with
you
the
would
nearby.
need an awful lot of them. That's why the only recorded events of this happening are on, shipping vessels that are, transporting quite large quantities.
God damn! Can you imagine? Can you imagine the report back to the shipping company? Yeah, what happened? Yeah, we had a whole bunch of nuts suddenly explode in the hull, and we just. Wow, I wouldn't want to do the paperwork for that.
Clean up aisle 4.
Added to this, not only that, but when stored in large quantities, they are also prone to self-heating and spontaneous combustion.
Okay, so Ashley, congratulations. Apparently your favorite choice snack is damaging to your health. Well done.
It's not damaging to your health automatically.
Only when you have, quote, large quantities.
None.
So the coneheads are not allowed to buy pistachios.
I knew you were going to do it. I
So
knew
go
one of us was going to do it.
So just go ahead and when somebody really ticks you off,
Pour
just go
pistachios
ahead
in there.
and send them a lifetime supply of pistachios. It'll be a lot. It'll be a lot of pistachios, but it won't be a very long lifetime.
No, go the cheaper route. Do poop senders.
What?
Poopsenders.com. They send poop to people's houses.
Well, cool, because right underneath pistachios, as far as organic hazardous materials go, large manure piles can spontaneously combust during conditions of extreme heat.
What's the best part is they put a little card in the bag to say, you want to know who sent this to you? Turn me over. So they actually have to open the bag to get to the card, and on the back of the card is the ultimate statement of, "We will never tell."
Oh, thank goodness. Excellent. All right.
My.
More questions coming in, and of course, as always, thank you very kindly. Chris writing in, and it's kind of a two-parter because it got split up, which I didn't know that it did that in particular. So, thank you.
Chris asked a good question.
Yeah. Chris is asking, first off, enough filler. I agree, totally and wholeheartedly. Thank you so very, very much. And one of these days, I will try to get some of the guys from the Merseyside Skeptics group to come on with us so we can find out what filler really looks like. Asks, would it be fair to say that Oprah's comment is a part of a wider view among religious groups of co-opting basic human traits and emotions as relating specifically to members of that group? For example, hope and charity as Christian values, and this being so ingrained, they can struggle to accept that people outside the group have these qualities as well. Which is a fabulously wonderful question. In a nutshell, is it Oprah's way of saying, you are not part of my group, so I have a hard time believing that you can actually feel like my group feels? And I think that's a completely understandable item, which is something that we've kind of talked about in the past about outsiders to a group are not part of my group. Ergo, I can't trust you, you can't trust me, and such like that.
And that's a defense mechanism built into, survival of the fittest. You
Only a
know,
Sith deals in absolutes.
huh?
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
All right.
Anyway, the, it, the question is, yeah, that is fair to say. Um, if you ask a Muslim who practices the religion called Islam, for those who didn't already know that, um, if they believe that Christianity in the Christian God, or not, sorry, not the Christian God, because supposedly Allah and Yahweh are the same God. If they believe that Jesus Christ is a savior, their answer is no, and they're going to believe in Muhammad. Um, and if you ask a Christian if they believe in Muhammad as a savior, they're going to say no, we believe in Jesus Christ. No matter what you say or do, they will always have that parity against each other. Okay, and when you have somebody coming from the outside going, well, okay, so you've got your values from this God, from this Jesus or this Muhammad, they're the same values. Like, yeah, they kind of are, they kind of aren't, and they keep trying to build walls between each other.
I do have to give props to the Muslims on at least this much. Having been personally to 5 or 6 of the most commonly known Muslim countries, spent a lot of time and spent a lot of time around and talking with um, very diehard Muslims. I will at least give them this much. When you ask a Muslim whether or not, you know, they believe in the same God as those who follow Judaism or those who follow Christianity, they will say yes. Because, Allah is just their word for God. Whereas you run into this a lot, Christians, in particular, when you ask them, do you believe in the same God as Muslims? They say, no,
Yeah.
I don't believe in Allah. So I have to at least give props to the Muslims in this respect, that while I may not agree with your religion, at least for the most part, most of you tend to have a far better understanding of your religion than other individuals.
Yeah, there's a big piece about that. I don't know how far you want to be chiming on this one in a couple seconds, Ashley, because I think you may this may springboard for you in a second. One of the things that I had a hard time understanding when I was in my early teens was the idea that Roman Catholics and what I had been called were Christians were separate things. And it wasn't until quite a bit later that I finally learned that the blanket term of Christians basically means somebody who is believing that the character Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, Emmanuel, whatever name, the guy from the New Testament, they were the ones who believed in that God figure, or figurehead, as the case may be. So I was always taught that Roman Catholics, we were Roman Catholics, and Christians were a whole other group. And then you got the Baptists, and then you got the Christians was just the whole derisive. It's them. I don't know, and you're nodding your head, so I'm guessing you kind of got some of that too.
Well, actually, not really.
Oh,
We,
yeah,
I,
hang me
I
out to dry. That's fine.
Well, I didn't know. I really didn't know so much about like there is, Presbyterian and Catholics and Jews and stuff until actually in the last couple of years. I just thought a good Christian was somebody that went to church and read the Bible and prayed, and that was it. I didn't really know that there was any difference
Yeah.
or distinguished from one group to the other.
In all fairness, most of the differences in the various Christian sects, looking back at their history, can be chalked up to more politics than theological motive.
Yeah, complete.
Yeah, you've got one that says, well, baptism can occur if you just sprinkle the water on the forehead. The other one says, well, baptism only occurs if you fully submerge the head. And the other one says, well, you got to go dive in a lake.
Or in a big bathtub. Yeah, you're right. But now getting back specifically to this, can we just chalk it up that for Oprah, she couldn't at that moment, she couldn't say, you feel the same things that I do, and you are different from me in the boxes that we think in. And I may be saying it very, very clumsily. I'm hoping I'm getting the right idea across. And I totally get that. And like we said a little bit ago, the idea that you are not part of my group, it's hard for me to see you as being as human as me. And I think that's annoying. There's another feeling for you. That was annoying to me because there are so many similarities and so few
Dissimilarities?
Thank you. I was thinking that was the wrong word. It
No,
didn't
it's
feel
not.
right. All right.
It's just an awkward word.
There's that. Geez, Cash. Hey, you know what? Screw you, man. I could use your book right about now. But
Susan, the thing is when you're being told that the only way that you can know how to be a good person and all that it entails is by believing in this particular version of this particular religion. And then you come across people who say, oh, yeah, I treat other people the same way. I have the same feelings. But you know what? I think your religion's full of bunk. That threatens people. That makes them insecure about their beliefs. And people don't like to be insecure. People like to have the feeling of security. I mean, look at how many rights that people were willing to give up after 9/11 just to regain some semblance of that feeling of security that they had before that happened. Okay, when I voted, I was voting against things that the politicians were saying. We need this to protect our country. It's like, no, no, we don't. That's stepping beyond the boundaries. But the majority of Americans were going, I'm scared. You're saying this is going to protect me and this is going to give me a good feeling. And so a lot of people, not everybody, but enough to get bills passed, went with it. There were plenty of people that were speaking up and contacting their Congress critters saying, yes, please pass it. It's going to make me feel secure. And to deny that people like that feeling would be erroneous. So when you have a religion that says, listen, you're a good person, as long as you do what we tell you to do, you're going to have the safety and security of knowing that no matter what happens in this life, when you die, everything wonderful is going to happen to you after life. And then somebody comes along and goes, I can do all that stuff and I don't believe in any of that. It scares the crap out of them. It threatens their beliefs.
because how can you feel the same things that I do if you're not part of my group? Joe, I know that you're zipping your lip really hard on this one. I don't know what was being said before.
Yeah. Well, just particularly the analogy that he used.
Listen, Joe, I understand
going
that
to
there were
avoid.
certain things that were set into effect that did help our country's security,
No, no, no,
but
no,
there
no,
were
no,
other
Wait,
aspects that shouldn't have been
no, no.
implemented.
I'm agreeing with you. How much I'm agreeing with you, I don't think you understand. That is why I'm zipping my lip, because that's not the topic of the show, and I am not going to run with that.
at least not at this point. Maybe later
I
we
can
will
rant and
discuss
rave
that.
for I can rant and rave for quite a while on that one. Trust me.
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
we can have an episode of how science gets you to art, religion gets you into a building.
To a certain degree, that's not.
I forgot who said that.
Go to the corner.
Yeah,
Go to the
yeah.
corner.
We. You know what? We'll talk about that before we get out of here, because there is a topic idea that I'm thinking we really should hit, because I'm feeling like we're butting up against that topic more and more and more. So we'll get to that in a little bit.
I have a question for Ashley.
Yes.
It's not extremely personal, but it's personal in that it relates to you and to your life. I'm not going to ask you details of your life that could identify you, but I was just curious because I'm still catching up on the Cash and Love shows. Um, well, right now he's talking about that Big Mama lady with the, yeah. Anyway, um, I was curious to know, because there's probably people who do have watched this who don't know the answer either. When you came to the realization, however slowly or quickly, that you're an atheist, and people around you kind of figured out that whether you told them or not, or whether they figured it out, they have an idea that, or knowledge that you became an atheist. Um, did you notice their reactions having any similarities to somebody who felt threatened or scared or any of those kinds of or negative feelings that are associated with somebody just going, "Oh my goodness," you know?
Yeah. My when I came out to my dad, he he was like, "What do you mean you're an atheist? What do you mean you don't believe in a God? I mean, do you believe in Jesus?" And I was like, "No, I don't believe in any of that." And he goes, "I've had a lot of health issues in my life," and his first thing was like, "Is because you've had so many, problems and trivials in your life?" And I was like, "No, it has nothing to do with that." And he just didn't understand, and still doesn't understand, and still doesn't want to bring it up. And
So it almost sounds like he's trying to make excuses for your statement rather than accepting you at your word that you don't have the belief.
exactly.
Much like Oprah was saying about this lady, "Oh, you have all, well, then you're a believer."
Yeah, my dad was never much for going to church, and I never really understood why would it be such a big deal for me to not be a believer. But um, he looks at me differently. My mom looks at me differently, and there's like a disconnect. Um, and it's very lonely, and it's I feel like I'm doing something bad when I know I'm not.
And that's something that is kind of part of the reason for having done the show this evening. Folks, thank you for tuning in. We've still got about another roughly half an hour to go in the show. If you are still watching with us, of course, thank you very much. If you would like to chime in, question and answer system is available here on the Google Hangouts. Be more than happy to help you out with that. And of course, if you'd like to keep getting notifications of the shows and be part of the show for future, please by all means get in contact with me over on G Plus under the name Shujin Tribble. Just send me an email, and I will see about having you join to the Holy Crap Circle, and we'll see what goes from there. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, if you'd like to join us live, please, by all means, feel free to follow, and I'll be more than happy to get the notices out for you also. For those who are also kind of wondering about being on the show in the future, we are going to be seeing about inviting folks on a fairly random basis during the Power of 10 shows. So the upcoming 40th episode, 50th, etc., assuming we make it that far. Which I have no intention of stopping anytime soon, so we'll talk through that a little bit later. Now, what you were saying just a couple of moments ago was really, really interesting, and for both you, Tech, and for you, Ashley, the defense mechanisms, and Joe was mentioning about this also. It is a really, really tough thing to break down through that emotional, mental barrier that folks have gotten, where they see somebody who was in their circle or in their box or whatever terminology you want to use for it, and then leaving it. Because for religion, when you leave the fold, when you leave the group for whatever reason, you are already expected to be a bad person.
Some even instruct people to kill anyone who attempts to leave the fold.
Yes. Now,
and I'm not referring to just Islam either. It's also in Catholicism.
Yeah, that was something I didn't want to use the big word for it, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use it. The word is apostasy. Apostasy is when you are part of religion, part of any particular religion, and then you leave it, which is a very specific term for a very specific action. You were Joe and I, in particular, we were Roman Catholics. Him from Chi-Town, me from Brooklyn and Long Island, which for both of our areas, I believe, was pretty much the predominant one where we grew up, right? Yeah. Okay, now, for us, we have since renounced that. We are no longer following that. We do not believe in that, and we actively say, I don't believe in that any longer. That pretty well fits us, right?
Yeah. Looking at it from another perspective, think expatriation.
Is a good word for it.
When you leave a country, you give up your citizenship in that country, and you no longer wish to have anything to do with that country. No, not necessarily in a negative context, but you no longer wish to be a citizen of that country.
Right.
That's expatriation, so it's kind of like that.
Right. You give up all rights and privileges associated with being part of that group, whatever that group might be. Moving from Canada to the United States, or vice versa, or
like Burger King.
No, because
Burger King's giving up its right as an American company is to convert and changing over to its center into Canada for tax reasons.
You're completely going to muddle the issue with the joke. Let it go.
Okay.
The idea, however, is that you can move. Beautiful example here in the United States. Perfect example would be you move from one state to another. I currently live in New York State. If I were to move to Ohio State, I would have to renounce my driver's license in order to pick up a one for the state of Ohio.
But why would you want to?
My car would no longer be allowed to be registered from New York State. It would have to be re-registered for Ohio State, not the colleges.
And to answer Joe's question, it's called a concealed carry.
Didn't want to go there, but okay.
Actually, I can't argue with that.
But the point of it is, when all is said and done, when you relocate and you change your association from one state to another, or from one country to another, generally speaking, it's not viewed as a bad thing. You are not directly hunted down by roving people from upstate New York who said, "You're in Ohio now because you want to live in Columbus. You want to
You're
be
killing
closer."
with us.
Yes, exactly right. You don't have that happen. Whereas, for whatever reason, it is, and I'm going to mention the word in a couple of moments because this is going to end up being one of our topics very, very soon. When you butt heads against the dogma, that's the word that I've been butting up against many, many, many multiple times tonight. The dogma of, if you are no longer part of our group, we must destroy you, which people would generally expect the Satanists to be doing, who don't. The feeling of fear is real. The worry that somebody is going to hunt you down is real. For Christianity, the Bible does say if somebody is following a false god, you should be the one picking up the first stone. Your brother, your family member, your neighbor, you should be the first one to try to kill them, your brother, your sister. I forget what the passage is or where it is. I'm sure the Skeptic's Annotated Bible has got it somewhere.
And
But
for the
that's in
Christians out
there.
there that say, well, that's only in the Old Testament, they're forgetting the fact that Jesus actually did make the statement that you should hate your family. You should love him and God first and foremost. And that if the family turns against God and him, then you should turn against your family.
Wait just a minute before we get too far on that. Chris, you are an angel. You have given such gold out of nowhere.
Oh, I see it. I
you.
see it.
I don't know you from anyone else on the internet, but right now I love you.
Oh, this is beautiful, yes.
That is a good question.
The question is...
I'm sorry.
I can approach that. I'm an apostate twice over, so I have double the feelings. I went from being a Jew to a born again, and from born again to atheist. So
the question is, when did you feel more guilt? When you were Catholic, or when you left?
Ashley, you want to take that one?
Well, you weren't Catholic, but
No.
we'll open it up generically. So for you on this one, when did you feel more guilt? When you were whatever denomination before, or when you left?
When I was a part of the church. Definitely not now.
Which is kind of funny because normally the one that they associate most with that feeling is Catholicism, because the big emphasis in Catholicism is original sin, that you are guilty from birth.
No. You were guilty from
From
before you were born.
Yeah.
From conception. You're guilty from your conception on back.
Yep. Which is, even as a kid, I thought that was just wrong. It made no sense to me, and I had still do, a huge feeling of fair play, which is yet another one of those feelings that I'm gonna get to in a couple seconds. But and Tech, you were saying that sure, for you, why not?
Yeah, I'm an apostate twice over. I can honestly say that I didn't really feel any guilt when I was a Jew, just because of the reason being that kind of nature was not instilled upon me. None of the guilt was instilled. Instead, during the time of my life that Judaism was prominent, there was a lot of traditions that were instilled, a lot of history. Believe it or not, a lot of history was a big focus with the things that my mother was teaching me about, and even respect. Not just for yourself, but for the people around you and for the history. Things that were done, whether they were right or wrong, they took place, things like that. And so there wasn't a lot of guilt. There was a lot of, that if you do something wrong, you've done wrong. That was kind of it. But the born again Christian part is like, oh, how the love is all forgiving and everything else. But if you do this, and if you do this, and if you do this, and it didn't stop. It was like, oh, you play Magic the Gathering, you're going to hell for that. Oh, you kissed a girl, oh, you're going to hell for that. This is like, wow, holy crap, the guilt trips were insane. The guilt trip actually hit me at one point. I came home and was like, Mom, you're going to hell, you're a Jew. And she and I had a long talk on that one after she calmed down and stopped screaming. She didn't
See,
scream.
which
She
is
put me in my place, and I deserved every minute of it.
which is completely opposite, because for me, when I was kissing a girl, it was heaven. Joe.
Okay, I actually have two things, and one of them is a little bit backtracking, but it's still the topic of the show. Hey, folks, believe it or not, I'm an atheist, and we have two really good examples of our atheist feeling creatures. Well, let's see. Tech brought up the U.S. Patriot Act, which I'm kind of angry about, actually.
And you
And
are
then,
actually one of the people that was entrusted with
don't get me
following up
started.
on that.
Don't get me started. Don't. Let's just leave it at that.
I'm using a euphemism for it.
And yet, Chris gave me such joy, just in that moment of brilliance, such rapture. Now, the other thing that I wanted to touch on just real quick, because we're still sort of on the topic, was, Tech and Ashley were both talking about how your families and those close to you reacted to uh, when you made it known that you were no longer of the believing variety. For me, it's not something necessarily that I broadcast out there, that I really put out there to anybody, family, friends, whatever. Um, I felt no need to, because it didn't change who I was, and uh, I can only note two things. Uh, One, my grandmother, which I she only discovered very recently, when my mother passed away, because there was discussion of things, and it's going to happen. But she was surprised. She was very surprised. But at no time did she, in any way.
She didn't try to save you.
No, no, not at all. She actually seemed very much more interested in understanding what it is that I believe and how I came to that conclusion.
That's wonderful. I mean, that's a great thing.
And that is a very
That's
rare thing.
respectful.
That is a very rare thing to see from somebody from that era. I mean, she's kind of getting up there in her years. Um, the other one, my mother. Now, my mother was, in every positive sense that you can think of, the very definition of a good Christian woman. She was very she was very devout. She was a believer, though necessarily she wasn't above, cursing and such like that. Yeah, she was just your average person, but she was a believer, and she was a very caring and loving individual to everybody that she met. When when it was made known to her that I was an atheist, that I had become this other, she didn't bat an eye. There was nothing. There was nothing there. She just accepted, and the conversation continued, because in her eyes, nothing had changed about me. I was still the same person that she had given birth to, that she had raised, and she saw no difference. And there is no difference. Now, the only thing I can say is that my mother's was a stubborn person. Knowing what she knew of me, she never once rubbed it in my face. Never. Not even in the slightest instant. She never really even brought it up. But when, say, we're talking on the phone, she would always, you know, well, not always, but occasionally she would, say that, she'd say a prayer for me. Not necessarily because, I'm a lost soul, but just because she worries about me, as a mother oft do. And never once did she make it sound condescending. Never once did she make it a contention. It was her honest way of saying she cared.
Yeah, and I totally get that. From the Roman Catholic side, for the old guard, shall we say, I totally get that. I saw that with my grandmother.
That is another thing that I need to bring up, is that my grandmother, the grandmother whom I was speaking of was or is Presbyterian, I think. She is my technically my stepfather's mother, so she would be my step grandmother. But this guy has more than earned the title of dad. I mean, really, gone above. Went from being a single guy living the life to marrying a woman with 7 kids. Jesus.
Mm.
I mean, I'm not even a Christian anymore, and I'll say this. I'll say it. Jesus.
Yes.
My mother was Roman Catholic, Irish Catholic, which is Roman Catholic heavy. But
I'm sorry. The joke I was just thinking of was, okay, so that means when she went up for communion, they would have to refill the bowl after each person, right? I'm sorry.
however, even she had her moment of, this doesn't make sense. Because when my parents first divorced, which we'll get into that another time, she took us kids to live with her family in Ohio, which was, as I've mentioned before, where I ended up being raised for the latter half of my childhood. She had taken my youngest brother and my youngest sister to the local Catholic church for their commencement and communion. To which the acting father of that church at the time stood in the doorway and blandly told her that there is no way that he is allowing those bastard children into his church. Now, allow me to explain. In Catholicism, marriage is an end-all, be-all. Once you are married, till death do you part. There is no divorce. There is no anything of that sort.
Well, with
Although some churches have been known to go back and say that marriage didn't happen.
right there is the one caveat
that's
of
different.
no, but that's different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's different topic though. If a child is born out of wedlock, if a man and a woman get together and they are not married and have a child, that child is what is defined as, and we are talking Webster's dictionary here, a bastard.
Mm-hmm.
At which point, that child, from their conception, no matter what happens,
Even
can
if that
never-
father marries that mother
can
later.
never enter the gates of heaven. Now, my mother was my father's second wife. And note, I use the term father, not dad. My mom was my father's second wife because my father had been married before and, of course, had a divorce. His wife did not pass away. I actually have 2 half-sisters, which, the more I talk about it, the more my family sounds like a clown car, but moving on. Because my mother married my divorced father and had 7 kids, according to the rules, and we're talking rules here, people, in a religion, according to the politics of the Catholic Church, myself and my 6 brothers and sisters are defined as bastards. And no matter what we do, we are condemned to hell, or at the very best, purgatory. We don't get to enter the gates of heaven, according to the rules and regulations of the Catholic Church.
Oh, hey, Joe, you'll have good company. Apparently my son's one, too.
So, while I did abandon the Roman Catholic faith, and what was the word you used, Shushin?
The
Apostasy.
Apostasy.
Okay.
Apostate.
Apostate.
Yes.
While I did so, my mother did it first. Because that day, she said, you know what? Fuck you. Pardon the language, but there was just no better way of putting it.
Don't worry about it. We'll bleep it out in post-production. Don't worry about it.
She, at that point, seriously took a moment, stopped, looked at her life, and looked at the Catholic Church and said, is this right? For me, for my children, is this right? She said no. And before even meeting my dad, my stepfather, who is Presbyterian, I believe, she abandoned the Catholic faith and started attending various other churches throughout the area. It's still Christian churches, but she more or less attended them with friends, just to still worship what she considered to be the Savior and God and all that, and it's just, yeah.
Find the suit that fit her particular feeling.
Not necessarily to try things out, but really just to be able to go and worship. And that is something that I can say for most of the Protestant religions, is that while they have their differences, for the most part, not one of them will, tell you, hey, you can't come in our church.
Well, no, of course, the Protestants will be more than happy to take in any ex-Catholic anytime, right? But I'm kind of picking on politics just a little bit. All right, we're butting up onto the end of the show, so we're going to see about wrapping up over here. I'm going to save my wrap up to cover this question that Chris had posed, which just as a reminder was, when did you feel more guilt, when you were Catholic or when you left? I'm gonna save my touch on this one.
I'm sorry, it still makes me laugh.
It's okay. It's okay. So, wow, Joe,
Sorry.
thank you.
Sorry.
You owe somebody a new set of tympanic membranes.
Feeling good, and I forgot that my microphone. You told me to put the microphone to my nose, damn it.
Yes, I did, and rightly so. And now you're going to have to move it again. Tech.
Yes, sir.
Any last commentary you want to make on this guy before, as you're closing up for tonight?
The statement that I have is that when you have somebody who is either has been indoctrinated in their childhood, or has so firmly set their beliefs that they're right. No matter what facts you show them, they will always be right, even when you prove them wrong. There is no point in arguing with them that, as an atheist, you have the same feelings and thoughts as they do, because they just won't believe it. They have tuned out the world around them. They have let the religion that they have chosen to follow, or that they were indoctrinated into, maybe they were never given a chance to follow anything else, but they have allowed it to speak for them. They have chosen to accept it and let it continuously run their life and choose or motivate their actions and their thoughts and their perceptions. They are looking through filtered lenses. They're listening to their own personal soundtrack, whatever analogy you want to make. There is very little that you will be able to do to convince them that you, a fellow atheist, or even anti-theist, humanist, freethinker, whatever you want to call yourself, has the same feelings as they are. You're better off moving on and, enjoying your life. You're going to come across those that are deep in their religion that question it, though. That instead of just having their earphones on and ignoring the world around them, are saying, "Oh, you're an atheist. You don't believe in a God." Well, why not? They're there and they're actually interested, like Joe, you were saying your grandmother was. That's a prime example of somebody who isn't blinded to the world around them. So once you figure out the person that you're talking to is blinded and they like being blinded, walk away. But when you come across that one that is like Joe's grandma who's interested in learning more, take the time. Be nice, be gentle, and remember that they have asked you. So you can either choose not to, or you can choose to engage them. And I encourage the engagement. And if you don't have a great answer for one of their questions, be honest. Say you don't know.
Fair enough. Ashley, I'm going to bring it on over for you. Any kind of last comments that you'd like to make as we close up for tonight?
Yes, when I finally made it came out to my dad, I didn't do it to make a stand and say, well, I left the faith to to shove it in your face and
To rebel.
yes, to rebel. I did it because I want you to know who I really am. I want to be truthful, and I don't want to hide, but I don't want to I want to be myself. And I had more to say, but now nothing's coming to me.
It's quite all right. It's
called a brain fart. It happens to all of us.
If I may,
sure.
you didn't feel like you didn't want to drive a wedge between the two of you. You didn't want to do any. You didn't want to perform any sort of break, but you at the same time did not want to pretend that things were precisely the same, that you had to hide from your family.
Exactly. I just want to be accepted that I'm your daughter. I'm your only child, and I want you to love me no matter what, and I want you to know the true me. And just because I don't live within the realms of your religion, your belief system, your bubble, I'm still a good person, and I still have feelings, and I still have aspirations and dreams, and I just want to be accepted and loved for the good person I am.
Which is what a lot of people want.
And I wish religion, I wish all this was not a big of an issue that it is. That I want to live my life, and as long as I don't do bad things and hurt others around me, I don't understand why it matters.
Totally on board for you on that one. Joe, last items that you want to hit before we get you?
I think I touched on everything that I was going to.
Fair enough. In that case, thank you very much for joining me tonight, Joe.
No problem. Believe it or not, folks, hey, we're closing out with another one. It's possible to make an atheist speechless.
Tech, thank you, of course, very much for being tonight and being awake.
Well, they call me Broadsword.
Ashley, of course, twice over. Thank you for joining us, and of course, as always, very proud to give you your opportunity to have your voice out.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Shujin.
And don't forget to tell Cash sometime. You can go ahead and toot your horn that I have a voice. Don't necessarily make it sound like I'm scooping him or anything, but he will be over the moon to hear that you've gotten yourself, as a bunch of other people would be.
Yeah, I plan on maybe calling Monday or within the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely wonderful. And of course, it's always a pleasure, everybody. Now, my final piece on this is not necessarily exactly about me. The question was, when did you feel more guilt, when you were Catholic or when you left? And this has now completely set us up for next week's show, which is going to be about dogma. Because this is a topic that has come up several times over that we've butted up against, and I think we really need to hit on that. Even though it's not directly biblical stuff, it covers a lot of ground, and I think it's about time that we hit that one specifically. But the question at hand.
And for clarification purposes, we will not be discussing holy bartenders.
Right. Don't know what that means. But when did you feel more guilt? I myself did not really have a lot of guilt while Catholic. I did not really have a lot of guilt after. But I did have people who were very heavily Catholic in my family, extended family, that tried to use it to their advantage. There was one time where I was visiting with my grandparents, some of the extended family out on Long Island. And they had some kids of their own, and I was in the basement where they had a full basement with TV, rec center, the whole thing. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think I was looking at some stuff on the TV, was flicking channels, and I turned it off as somebody was coming down. And they wanted to know what I was doing, or whatever it was I was doing. I was quite a bit younger. And they really wanted to know what was I doing, and I felt very self-conscious and maybe even guilty, because not because it was something that I was doing against a religion, but because I may have been doing something that I didn't really want to discuss. And up on the wall was one of the very traditional, there is Jesus with the ring of thorns and opening his chest, and there's his heart wrapped in barbed wire, or whatever the hell it was. It doesn't really much matter. We've seen this image on many an occasion, and this person who was a kid well, not a kid, but older than me, a teen, who wanted to know what it was I was doing and pointed it out. You know, when you don't tell the truth, when you lie, you hurt Jesus. And I thought that was absolutely disgusting. Even as a kid, I thought that was absolutely disgusting. That you would try to use some kind of fear tactic like that to find out information out of a kid? Now, I mentioned before, I've had a very, very strong fair play ideal in me for a long, long time. And it got me into trouble with some kids, even in grade school. On playing kickball, I actually said, yeah, you know what? He was out. He's on your team. Why would you say he was out? Because he was out. I'm not trying to cheat or nothing, but he was out. So for me, it was never really a big issue. But for people who come out of religions, the guilt of making that transition is amazing. Crossing that threshold is one of the biggest, hardest, most difficult, agonizing, difficult to finally make that last step over the threshold. The guilt of that singular moment keeps people locked in. There's a YouTuber, oh cripes, I can't remember. I will have to find the video. But there was a YouTuber who had gotten an email from someone who said that they were afraid of making that final step. I know all of the arguments, and you're right, it all makes sense, but I'm afraid to make that last step. And he finally... Yes.
The fear is indoctrinated in the religion.
Because you're afraid to make that last step, because you're afraid that you will lose everything that you had. You're afraid of committing past where you were. In the Way 43, I believe is who it was. Something like that. But it was a video presentation for Emily, I believe is who it was. And he finally ended it all off with saying, it's safe. It's fine on this side of the door. All you have to do is just make that one last step. The guilt doesn't matter what denomination of anything you're coming from. The guilt, the sorrow, the hurt, the indecision is on this side of that door. And that is amazingly powerful. Because the guilt of finally saying, I can't stay, but I can't leave. That is gut-wrenching. That is heartbreaking to think of what it's like for us lay people, never mind the people who are in power, who are the leaders, who have to sit back and go, how can I leave? Is there guilt? Yeah. Should there be? I don't think so. But I'm just one person. I have no idea if I'm right or wrong. All I know is it's what I feel. And you can feel whatever you do. As always, everyone, thank you very much for sticking it out with us. We know full well this is not a sexy podcast like everybody else's, but we still think that we've got something worthwhile to talk about. If you have something that you would like to discuss with us, by all means, email me, shujintribble@gmail.com. Please put holy crap in the subject line, and we'll take it from there. If you would like to leave a voicemail message for us, of course, please feel free. The phone number again is 859-HCTV-554, and we'll see what we can talk about later. Next week we are going to talk about dogma, because it is not just a religious thing.
It's also a
it is
movie.
It is part of what really holds a lot of us together like this.
I choked him up.
It happens. So, please, by all means, let us know what you think. If you want to get a lot more information and have a lot more discussion, there are plenty of other groups out there. Atheists on Air, Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, who need your support for their legal problems that are going on right now, where somebody is trying to shut them up. You can find out a lot more about them. theskepticsguide.org, I believe is what it is. But just look up the podcast SGU. It's real hard to miss them. And, of course, Cash, thank you for doing what you do, man. And the guys over at Scathing Atheist. We'll see about having some of you guys back again soon. As always, before I say a complete good night for all of you, I say my good nights for my lady, because 9.5 years on, I am still in love. Matane Fujin, I love you and I miss you. Dream of me. And of course, for all of you, I wish you all the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. And as always, until the very next time we get together, everyone, good night.